This thing weighs about 5,000 pounds. It is nearly 19 feet long. It has fake wood panels, a roof rack, and room for 9 people. Everything about it tells you to slow down. And then you find out what Chevrolet let people bolt under the hood, and the whole picture stops making sense. This is the Kingswood Estate 454, and it had no business being as quick as it was. Detroit, 1970. For a few short years, the order form was a wide open door. If you walked into a Chevrolet dealership with the money and the nerve, the factory would build you almost anything. You wanted a big block in a coupe? Fine. In a convertible? Sure. In a 4-door sedan your wife would drive to church? No problem. The company engine list did not really care what body the engine went into. And that is the thing that makes the whole rest of this story possible. Because somewhere on that list, quietly, was a wagon. To understand where this car sat, you have to understand the wagon lineup, which Chevrolet had just changed around. Starting in 1969, every full-size Chevy wagon got its own name instead of just borrowing the sedans. At the bottom was the Brookwood, the plain one, the Biscayne in work boots. Above that, the Townsman, dressed like a Bel Air. Then the Kingswood, trimmed like an Impala. And at the very top, the Kingswood Estate, the caprice of the wagon world. The Estate was the one with the fake wood paneling down the sides and across the tailgate, the nicer inside, the extra shiny trim. It was the wagon you bought when you had a little money and a lot of family. Every one of these wagons, top to bottom, came with a V8 as standard. There was no 6-cylinder hiding in the lineup to keep things normal. This was a big, heavy V8 car no matter which badge you picked. These names only stuck around for a short stretch. The Kingswood and the Kingswood Estate ran from 1969 through 1972, and then they were gone. For 1973, Chevrolet stopped giving the wagons their own names and just put them back under the sedan names, so the Kingswood Estate became the Caprice Estate. So if you are tracking one of these down, the actual Kingswood Estate name lived for exactly 4 model years. That alone makes it the kind of small detail that slips right past you. And it was built to carry people. The Estate could be ordered as a 9-passenger car, which meant a front bench, a middle bench, and a 3rd row. On the early cars, the way you got into that 3rd row was its own piece of clever design. The tailgate worked 2 ways. It could drop down like a gate to load gear, or it could swing out sideways like a door, with a little step tucked into the rear bumper so the kids could climb up and in. And that 3rd seat faced backward, a jump seat that folded down into a hidden well in the floor, so the children in the way back spent the whole trip watching the cars behind them. 9 seats, a roof rack, fake wood. This is about as far from a muscle car as Chevrolet's lineup got, which is exactly why the engine choice is so strange. Now, for most of these wagons, the engine under the hood was a safe one. A small block, a mild V8. Something that moved 5,000 pounds of family car down the road without any fuss. That is what almost everybody ordered, and that is what almost everybody got. But down on the order form, past the radios and the air conditioning and the trailer package, there was another choice. A 454 cubic inch big block. Let's talk about that engine, because this is where people online get it wrong. And the comments section on a car like this is rough. The 454 was Chevrolet's big block, the Mark IV. The same basic engine design the company was putting in its fast cars. It was not even the first big block you could get in one of these wagons. Back in 1969, the hot option was a 427. For 1970, Chevrolet grew that idea out to 454 cubic inches, fed it through a single big Rochester Quadrajet 4-barrel, and ran it on a strong compression ratio of around 10 1/4 to 1, which meant it wanted premium gas and a clear stretch of road. In the full-size cars for 1970, you could get it in 2 versions. The basic version, the LS4, was listed at 345 horsepower. Step up to the LS5 and you were looking at 390. Both of those are gross numbers, measured on a stand with no extra parts bolted on, which was how the whole car business listed power back then. Here is the number that actually tells the story, though. Torque. The LS5 made somewhere around 500 pound-feet of it. That is the number that matters in a car this heavy. Horsepower is what sells the poster. Torque is what shoves 5,000 pounds of fake wood away from a stoplight like it forgot how heavy it was. And here is the thing about that 454. It had a huge range. In Chevrolet's muscle cars, the hottest version of this very engine, the LS6, was listed at a full 450 horsepower, with 500 pound-feet of torque to go with it. The Wagon did not get that wild one. What you could order in the Estate topped out at 390 gross horsepower. But understand what that means. The same big block family that powered Chevrolet's quickest muscle cars, the same engine, the same design, was sitting under the hood of a fake wood family wagon. In a station wagon, that is completely crazy. So what did all of that actually do? Here is where it gets fun. This is a car that weighs about 5,000 pounds and stretches close to 19 feet on a 125-inch wheelbase. By every rule of physics, it should be slow. It should lumber off the line, crawl up to speed, and settle into an easy highway cruise. Instead, a 454 full-size Chevy of this time would run to 60 in about 8.2 seconds. Sit with that for a second. 8.2 seconds. In 1971, in a car the size of a small boat. That is not a typo, by the way. A 2-ton family wagon with a luggage rack was matching the kind of speed people were paying real money for in cars built only to go fast. Which brings us to the Mustang sitting next to it. And this is where the Wagon earned its name. The regular Mustang, the one you actually saw on the street, ran the base small block, and a car like that hit 60 in about the same 8 seconds the Wagon did. So the family hauler pulls up next to a pony car, the light turns green, and the Wagon is right there with it, sometimes ahead. The driver of that Mustang did not see it coming. Now, to be fair, the Wagon could not keep up with the serious Mustangs. A Boss 429 or a 428 Cobra Jet would still pull away, and any car fan will tell you so. But those were rare, expensive, and built for one thing only. They were never the Mustang you met at a normal stoplight. And a few years later, when the Mustang shrank into the little Mustang 2 and the whole car world was choking on smog rules, this Wagon's big block would have driven circles around it. That is the sleeper. A fake wood grocery getter with 9 seats and a luggage rack, quietly embarrassing the car parked next to it. Winning the race nobody thought was a race at all, and the same thing that made it quick made it useful. All that low-end torque, the part that did not care about the poster, turned the 454 Wagon into a serious tow vehicle. This was a car that could carry 9 people, swallow a summer's worth of luggage, and still drag a loaded travel trailer up a hill without breaking a sweat. It was really a family hauler that hauled. The speed was almost a side effect of building the strongest, hardest-pulling family car they knew how to build. So we have shown this Wagon could move. But the engine is only half of what makes these cars worth remembering. The other half is bolted to the back, and it might be the single weirdest thing Chevrolet ever did to a tailgate. On the 1971 and later cars, when the Wagon got bigger and heavier, Chevrolet brought out what it called the disappearing tailgate. People now call it the clamshell, and the idea was really clever. The rear glass slid up into the roof. The lower tailgate dropped straight down into the body, under the load floor. Push a switch, and the whole back of the car just opened up, with nothing swinging out into your way. You could back this huge Wagon into a closed garage, hit the switch, and load it without a door or a hatch hitting the wall behind you. Nobody else was doing this. If you are enjoying this one, do me a favor and hit subscribe, because forgotten Chevrolets like this are most of what I do around here, and there are a lot of them left to dig up. Alright, back to that tailgate. We talked earlier about the clever two-way gate on the early cars. The clamshell was the next step, and it was the real party trick. The hand-operated versions were balanced so carefully that the heavy lower gate only took about 35 pounds of effort to push down, and about 5 to lift back up. On the nicer cars, both the glass and the gate were fully powered. The third row changed too. On these later wagons, it faced forward instead of backward, reached through the rear side doors, so the kids in the back finally got to see where they were going instead of where they had been. So why did Chevrolet ever stop building something this cool? The usual reasons. It was heavy, it was complicated, it was expensive, and it had a lot of motors and tracks and rubber seals that could fail, which is exactly why, today, a broken clamshell is the first thing a collector checks before buying one. When General Motors shrank these wagons down for 1977, cutting something like 700 pounds and nearly 2 feet of length, the clamshell did not make the trip. It went back to a normal tailgate, and a little piece of strange, wonderful design quietly disappeared. Now, the real question is how many of these big block wagons Chevrolet actually built? And this is where the honest answer turns out to be the interesting part. We do not know. Not exactly. Chevrolet kept build numbers by model, not by engine. We know the Kingswood Estate sold well. Going back to 1969, the standard Kingswood alone moved 48,042 cars. In 1970, the estate moved 66,980, and the standard Kingswood another 49,352. Put the two together and Chevrolet sold over 116,000 of these wagons that year, which made them the second best-selling wagons in the country, behind only the Ford LTD Country Squire and its 121,000. The next year, 1971, the numbers dropped, partly because a long strike had cut into how many they built. So, as wagons, depending on the year, they sold somewhere between fine and very well. But how many of those buyers walked past the safe small block and ticked the 454 box? Chevrolet never wrote that number down, and most of the original build papers are long gone. What we do know is that they were rare. Almost all of these wagons left the factory with the smaller engine, because almost everyone buying a 9-seat family hauler was not thinking about quarter miles. They were thinking about the drive to grandma's house. The big block wagon was the oddball, the one ordered by the guy who knew exactly what he was doing. That rarity shows up at auction now. Clean ones of these wagons have been bringing real money, with one selling for $31,750 and average sale prices sitting right around $32,000. The strong ones go higher. A real big block wagon crossed an auction block for about $33,000, and a rare early big block car once reached over $80,000. For a car that was the cheap, everyday choice when it was new, that is the kind of number that makes you look twice. And those numbers move, so if you are shopping, check the current guides before you write a check. So, how did all of this end? About as fast as it started. The window was always small. For 1971, General Motors dropped the compression on all its engines, from around 10.25 to 1 down toward 8.5 to 1, so every engine could run on the low lead fuel that was coming. The strongest 454 you could order slid to 365 gross horsepower, and when you measured it the honest way, put in the car, it was making about 285. Power was already starting to slip, and the slip was about to turn into a slide. Then, for 1972, the whole car business switched from those hopeful gross horsepower numbers to net numbers measured in the real car, and suddenly, the 454 was listed at 270 horsepower. And the single exhaust wagons even lower, down around 230. Same basic engine, just an honest number on a smaller poster. Then 1973 arrived, and with it the oil crisis, the gas lines, the rising insurance, and the tighter smog rules. The 454 faded to around 245 horsepower, and the whole idea of a big block in a family wagon stopped making sense to anyone holding a calculator. The engine kept going in trucks for years, where torque mattered more than image, but in the big cars it was finished after 1976. The door that had been wide open in 1970 was shut, and it did not open again, which leaves the wagon itself as a kind of time capsule. A reminder of the short, slightly crazy moment when an American car company would drop its biggest engine into its most everyday family car just because you asked. One last thing, because somebody always brings it up. When people picture a giant American family wagon, a lot of them picture the family truckster from the Vacation movie, that ugly green land yacht with too many headlights. For the record, that car was not a Chevrolet. It was built from a Ford, a 1979 LTD Country Squire, painted a color the studio called Metallic P, and under the hood was a mild 302 making around 130 horsepower. So it was every bit as slow as it looked. The movie cars are usually said to be the work of the famous car builder George Barris, though that has always been argued about. Either way, it became the cartoon version of the American wagon, the punchline. And here is the funny part. One of the copies later sold at auction for around $91,000. The joke wagon turned into a collector's item too, but the truckster was always meant to look ridiculous and drive worse. The Kingswood Estate 454 was the opposite. It looked just as harmless. It was anything but. So picture that stoplight one more time. The Mustang on one side, the wood-paneled wagon on the other, 3 rows of seats, luggage rack on the roof, 9 seat belts, and a fake wood inside. Everything about it still tells you to slow down. The only person at that light who knows the truth is the one holding the wagon's steering wheel. And when the light turns green, the picture stops making sense all over again. If you want more forgotten Chevrolets that were quietly faster than they had any right to be, the video on screen is a good place to go next.